Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Robert Theobald, your host, and I'm the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services at the Arizona Commerce Authority. We're glad to have you with us today. Still going to have some people joining as we go through the intros, but let's start, as we like to do, by just posting in the chat where you're tuning in from. We like to see where our attendees are from throughout the state and oftentimes other states as well. So we've got Jennifer from Show Low, Paradise Valley. Thank you, Katrina. Jason from Peoria, Linda from Peoria. I know we got a small group right now starting out. We got Scottsdale. I think the rain's affecting everybody. All right, let's see Arizona. Mesa. All right, we got a good swath of the state to start with, so we're going to jump right and in the session today. So as many of you are familiar with, I'd like to start by thanking all of our community partners. We could not do these webinars without them, their time, their effort, and their expertise. The Small Business Bootcamp is designed to help small businesses prepare, plan, and grow. Not only is it our Tuesday morning webinar, but if you were following us last week, you saw that we did a special session and a workshop. And we do those every so often, have special sessions when there's something urgent and timely that we need to get out, and then also workshops that we do with many of our community partners. So be on the lookout for those. One of the great things about the boot camp is we record all of our sessions and we post those in the content library. So the Small Business Content Library is where we house all of them. We have well over 250, we have over 300 actually, recorded webinars and presentations and workshops that you can go and access anytime you want. You can view the video, you can download the slide decks and other materials that our expert presenters have provided. So it's an amazing resource. The ACA also has a number of other programs to support your small businesses out there. The Arizona Career Readiness Credential, the Arizona Innovation Challenge, Arizona MEP, our Manufacturing Extension Partnership, Arizona State Trade Expansion Program, for those that want to export your goods or services, Arizona at Work, and then Small Business Services that I oversee. One of the programs that my team and Small Business Services handles that we like to talk about is the Small Business Checklist. This is an online interactive tool to help entrepreneurs understand the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance requirements at the local, state, and federal levels. You can also find other information related to starting and running your business on that checklist program. It's a great resource. You can scan the QR code on the screen there and it'll take you to it. We also have our virtual assistant, Sally, on there that can help with some basic questions, but for the deep, in-depth information, you can go right into the checklist and get that and get what you're looking for. Also, we want to share some key updates on some events and information. The Women in Business and Entrepreneurial Exchange is taking place on February 9th from 9 a.m. to 12. I think that's to 12 p.m. That morning. It is hosted by SCORE Greater Phoenix. So if you're interested in that, we'll put the link in the chat. We also want to remind everybody of the notification of solicitation releases. That is for any of our friends that are lawyers, accountants, tax preparers of a request for quote for our SSBCI Technical Assistance Program that we are starting to be a qualified vendor for that. And then for those that weren't able to attend last week, we did two important webinars and workshops on the beneficial ownership information requirements that need to be reported to the Financial Crimes Division of the Treasury. And then also we had the Arizona Department of Revenue on sharing information on common TPT, transaction privilege tax mistakes. So you can watch those recordings in the content library. With that, let's look at some of the upcoming sessions. We have next week is Small Business Big Impact Blueprint for E-commerce Marketplace Success. Got a new presenter. We'll be talking about a topic that we haven't really talked about before on the boot camps on doing business on Amazon and Walmart marketplaces, with a big focus on selling things on Amazon Marketplace. So that's gonna be a really exciting session. That one is actually scheduled for an hour and a half. It's a little bit longer on there, so we make sure we have the time needed. Then on February 6th, we have Motivate Your Prospects to Take Action with Persuasive Language. In other words, we got to sell. You know, we can do all the marketing in these first 3 sessions, but if we don't close the sale, then we don't get that business. And then your growth formula, getting from vision to execution, on February 13th. So we've got a lot of great upcoming, and we do have a couple of workshops we want to talk about. On Thursday, February 1st, we have a workshop, a lunch and learn workshop with the IRS, with avoiding the top tax mistakes that small businesses make. So we hope you can join us for that. And then on Wednesday, February 14th, in the morning, in person here at the ACA at our conference center, is our workshop that we do in partnership with the Phoenix Business Journal, setting up your business for growth. Again, that's in person. That registration actually goes through the Phoenix Business Journal, as we partner with them for that. But we have those 2 pieces coming up. Hope you can join us for one or both of them. And with that, we're going to jump into today's session. We've got our third session with Nicole Zeno, the founder of Clever Cow Media. And so, Nicole, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you. If you have questions for Nicole during this session, please post them in the Q&A that you find at the bottom of your screen. It helps us keep track of the questions better, so we can probably get them answered. So, Nicole, it's all yours.
Beautiful. Well, welcome everyone. Third session, last session. I'm gonna miss you guys on a Tuesday morning. It's rainy here, so I don't know if it's rainy where most of you are. So if you hear a little bit of rain or my dog, I am sorry, but she's not loving it today. So anyway, today we're talking about implementing that growth plan. So we've already talked through how to build the growth plan, how to figure out where you are. Now we're talking about implementation, and this is really exciting. So I'm going to kind of skip over this next part really quickly, but for all the people who are maybe new to this one, go back, watch the first 2 episodes. But my name's Nicole Zeno. I am a serial entrepreneur, consultant, marketer at Phoenix Business Journal 40 Under 40. For all of you who have been here, if you want to see, we just released the Forbes Books podcast. So if you really want to know a little bit more, I will add those links to the chat for you guys right there. But like I said, like I started, we have been through a journey together. We've been through the discovery phase, which is really thinking through where you guys are at currently. Where does your business want to go? How do we grow and think about business in a data driven decisions, including things like becoming proactive instead of reactive. What's the data that proves that the next part of building the plan is going to work? And where do you guys really truly want to listen to yourselves and grow into, not just in your business, but in your lives, right? Then from part 2, we built a plan, right? So we went from the big picture down to the middle piece of this, which is thinking through goals, then KPIs, so key performance indicators. You should now have your campaigns that you're going to run that get you to those growth goals, and then breaking that even further into the campaign document that really lists out every single task that you and every single deliverable you're going to put together in order to hit those places. Now we're going to hit part 3 and 4. Part 3 is really implementation. So I'm going to ask you guys a question here. My question to you is, have you ever watched a webinar, felt like you learned a lot, and then never saw results? I mean, has anyone on here felt that way? Because I think I have. Have you guys? I'm looking at the chat. I'm not seeing any answers yet. All right. Maybe I'm here, Robert, and not. There we go. Yes. Okay. So I felt that way too. And really what I think that comes down to is we watch a lot of these webinars as small business owners. We try to learn how to do all of these things. And one of the things we learn is all these great tactics and techniques, but we really don't think about implementation, right? This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where we are going to take this and put it into our business. And I know as small business owners, you guys have a lot of, let's put it this way, you guys have a lot on your plate. So we can buy as many $22 templates and 200 courses and $200 courses and software and all these things. But at the end of the day, we have not a ton of time, not a ton of resources, and it's just another thing to do, right? So, but implementation, if we take the time now to implement the growth plan that we've put together, it's going to not feel like a hassle moving forward. And in fact, it's going to free you up for new things. So the first and most important part to implementation is picking your tools. So things like figuring out what tools, there's lots of softwares out there. I'm going to show you a few of them right here. So things like ClickUp, Basecamp, Zoho, Asana. I'm sure that you guys have used some of these before, Monday.com, Trello, and being small business owners, I'm sure you listen to podcasts and you've probably heard advertising for all of these different ones as well. So how do you pick which is the right project management software for you? And really it comes down to what is a few things. I like to go through and ask questions about what is needed, right? Not just now, but later on. Things like how many resources are needed, automation, do I need to have flexibility, right? Lots of different things, but also it comes down to personal preference, right? I have used every single one of these tracking softwares, and I will tell you, it depends on the project and it depends on the person and how they like to see it. But with that being said, whatever is going to get you started where you feel the most comfortable with, that's where you're going to start. And we can always upgrade to a better system or a new system as needs happen. So what I thought the best way to do this with you guys today is to actually jump in and show you how I would start in two different systems. So I'm going to show you how I would start in a Google Sheet. I'm going to jump out of this presentation for a second. So can you guys see my Google Sheet here? Let's see. Just making sure. Perfect. Yes. All right. We have a blank Google Sheet. I did not even set this up before for you guys because I wanted to show you exactly how I would go about setting up a basic project management software right here in a Google Sheet. So softwares and standard operating procedures do not have to be overthought or fancy. It is literally what's going to help you get here. So what I would consider this part is kind of a bare minimum to what I think you guys would need in order to move forward in implementing your growth plan. Because if you did the homework, you saw that now we have a bunch of different campaign documents and spreadsheets, and we have our MSP document, which should be 20 plus pages long. And that's a lot of documents to kind of go looking through to try to find what's going on a day-to-day. Remember, we went from the very large, big picture all the way down into the in the weeds. And today we're talking about the actual tasks, the in the weed tasks. So the way I would start, and trust me, I like a good spreadsheet as much as the next person. So the way it looks is going to be really important to me. But let's start by just plotting the stuff on the spreadsheet. So the way I would start is I would definitely get in here and start thinking through what are the information I need to know on a day-to-day. So things like what's the milestone or campaign, right? What's the actual task that we're doing for that campaign? What's a start date, end date? Maybe what's the status or the category? or even the goal that's associated with, right? Now, for some people, you guys have much larger teams. We're going to do things like assigning, who is it assigned to, maybe even who needs to be informed or consulted. We can start kind of coming in here. I always like to add a notes section. We can start coming in here and moving things around to make sure we have it kind of set up, right? We can also do things like adding generalized quarter or month in here so that we can start sorting and grouping places together, right? So if we think about the way that I had taught you to build campaigns, your KPIs, now we can kind of come start in here and say, this is our milestone. Let's see, goal number 1. Maybe our milestone for this or our campaign is social media. And now we can kind of start saying through the tasks, we need to build a content calendar. We need to design the posts. We need to schedule them. And you can see how we now start building out every single task, whether that task takes you a half an hour or it takes you 5 hours, we start building it out. Now, one of the greatest things about something like this or any type of project management software is you're really going to go campaign document to campaign document, right? So we've already built out these beautiful campaign documents with all the deliverables we're going to need. We now go campaign document, and we start building it into here in very doable tasks. These tasks should not take you more than 8 hours, more than a whole day worth of work, because we're going to want to close out certain amount of tasks every single day. You don't want these tasks staying open. And when I say close them out, I mean put them towards complete. Even if the actual big picture task is not fully complete, we want us to be able to check off and complete things every single day, right? Because if we know that this is a list of everything we need to get done to accomplish our goals, and we're checking 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 off every day, we know that even if it was a rough day and we only got 1 done, we're 1 closer to our goal, right? The activities that we have done is going to make us get closer to that goal, right? So as you start building these tasks out, you will notice that there are going to be things like things that happen all the time, right? The same tasks happening all the time. And that's when you're going to start building standard operating procedures. We'll go into that in a little bit, but I want to jump back into here. So you can see this doesn't look very pretty yet, but it's going to be functional, right? So you can do things like changing your, and I know that most of you know how to use a spreadsheet, so I'm not trying to teach you how to use a spreadsheet, but we can do things like make it prettier. We can make sure that things are lined up. Sometimes looking at things a certain way will be great, but we can also do things like add a status, right? So we know that our status is, okay. So we can add something like conditional formatting where it allows us to change colors based on status. So if it's complete, we can make it green. If it's not, if it's overdue, we can make it red, right? That you can generally find. We can also add data validations. So these are rules like drop downs, right? So if we know that we have a certain status we want, right? So maybe this is planned in. This is in progress. We can do, it's ready for design. We can even do things like it's ready for QA and it's approved. We can change the colors based on each of them, right? I like purple for QA. That's what we use here. And now we can start adding these to all of our tasks, right? So now we can come in here and say, okay, build a content calendar. That's going to be assigned to Jessie, who is our head of social media here. She now gets a notification that this is assigned to her. We know that it's associated with social media milestone campaign. We know that it's associated with goal number 1. And guess what? That is ready for design, or it's ready to be in progress. This is a super simple setup, right? It's something so simple that I don't want to hear anybody not being able to track their progress as they move through their tasks. We can even do things like adding the links to your campaign documents. For instance, in the notes section, we can add links to campaign documents. We can add any type of notes that you may need, links to Google Drives that have the assets that the person who's going to be doing this needs, right? We have all sorts of options when it comes to spreadsheets. I think that as business owners, we often think it has to be fancier, right? There's software out there with AI, there's software out there with automation, there's software out there doing a lot of different things. And so we get really into building out into these different software pieces, which is another monthly membership fee that you need, but also B, complicated. And so sometimes we jump in, we start to build out, we realize it's complicated, we get overwhelmed, and then we never get to our goals, which was really to just get started, right? So sometimes a spreadsheet is the best, easiest way to just track and get into it and move forward. So when we're building out our tasks, just a few more tips to building out these tasks. Make sure that these you're going to forget things. Spreadsheet's a great way to add rows in, but make sure these tasks are small and achievable. Make sure there's some sort of notes or description portion so that you can add those notes, whether it's just for you or it is for a team member. Even for you, when you put it on you don't know how many times I put tasks into our project management software and 3 weeks later come back to them and have no clue what I was talking about, right? The description is going to help you. As you start doing this more, you'll start realizing that there's repeat tasks, or there's tasks that have certain parameters around them. So for instance, if we are talking about a social media calendar, every time I have a post for Instagram, I'm going to have captions that I'm going to need. I'm going to have hashtags I'm going to need. I'm going to have tags that I'm going to need. I'm going to have an image that I need to QA. And those are things that should have their own space in your spreadsheet for. The other thing is, if you don't know about tabs in spreadsheets, this is a genius thing that's going to make your life a lot easier. We can also take this spreadsheet and rename it. And let's say this is the overview, PM. We can also duplicate this and say, rename it to social calendar. And now start saying, all right, well, we don't need a milestone or campaign anymore, but for each of these tasks, we need which social platform it's going to be on. We need a caption. And we need hashtags. You see how now things are starting to kind of come together. The real big tip here is that wherever you pick to build your project management, this should be your hub. This should be the place that every person on your team lives in. This should be the spot that you go to every morning to figure out what it is you need to do that day to hit your goals. I don't go back into all of my campaign documents on a daily basis, but I do go into my project management software and see where I am, because I know that that software is set up to set me up for success with my clients. Then once we get into the review sections, then there's time to review and make sure everything's set up. So before I get into those next steps, what I want to do is show you another option for something like this, right? Google Sheets is extremely, or Excel if you're in Microsoft, or any of these spreadsheet softwares, extremely easy way for you to get started. But one thing I've noticed is that anyone who starts with a spreadsheet generally ends up graduating to the next level, which is something more powerful because maybe this spreadsheet doesn't have all the things you use. And maybe that looks something like, I'm gonna go back here for a second. Maybe that looks something like Monday.com. I don't know if anyone's used Monday.com before, but Monday.com is a really beautiful, fancy spreadsheet software, essentially. There's Smartsheet, which is another software that helps you set up spreadsheets specifically for project management. There's Notion, which is a more of a notebook style project management where it's a lot of notes and wikis and research papers, right? You have Jira, which is generally used by engineering teams and kind of goes into the project management style of Agile and Scrums, which really allows for a team to think on their feet and to get more done in a story-based setting. When I say story, what that means is that here is like the kind of goal we're going for. We kind of build that into a storyline, into the customer experience, and these are the tasks that are going to get us there, right? So there's lots of exciting things down that line. Where I like to go, where we run our entire business off, and I think is an amazing option for small businesses, is actually ClickUp. And if you've been on these before, you've probably heard me talk about ClickUp. The reason why is because the pricing grows as your team grows. So you're not spending a lot of money up front. The workload reporting, so that you know if you're overplanned. ClickUp's really great if you are a solopreneur, all the way up to a team of hundreds and thousands of people, and it has flexible projects and project views. So I'm actually going to take you into our ClickUp, which is something that I don't do often, especially on a recorded webinar, but I think that it'd be really helpful for you guys to not just see how we do this in something like a spreadsheet, but also how do we quickly set this up in software, and how can software help you to achieve these goals? So I'm going to jump back into my other screen here. Hold on. Okay, so this is my ClickUp. I'm not going to show you everything involved in it because this is legitimately where our business runs. It is our hub. And the project management software should be more than just a set of tasks. It should really help you to think through your business. I have a dashboard in ClickUp where I go every morning, and it not only tells me what tasks need to be done, but it tells me my publicist is in here, and it tells me what PR requests are needed from me. It tells me what social media posts need to be QA'd. It tells me how much money is coming into my business for this month, right? I can see everything in one place. Now, we did not start there. We grew into it. We built into it. And that's what you guys are going to do. The next steps that I'm going to talk through are going to be about how you go from very simple to building through that process. But right now, I just want to show you a few quick ways that we're going to set this up the same way we set up our spreadsheet, right? So within any sort of project management software, especially ClickUp, you're going to have things called spaces, which are basically groupings of tasks that are, or folders and lists that are going to be able to hold a specific meaning, right? So for us, we have our clients. This holds everything that are tasks around clients. We have our CRM and billing. This is everything that's around our actual our clients, vendors, information. It's our invoicing and our billing. Our billing manager is in our project management software. So when something needs to be billed, she is putting it in there, and or our team is putting it in, and she's able to bill it out without any additional communication. And for small businesses who maybe have people working remote, we're going to talk about fractional and ways that we can get this work done that's not just on the head of the CEO. This is really important, right? We need to be able to do things quickly and efficiently and talk through it. my team knows that if I can't find something in 3 clicks, it's going to be a really hard day for all of us, right? And that's because everything lives in here within 3 clicks. I have a search feature that I can search. We have naming. We name everything a certain way. And this is why we do this, because it makes all of our lives a lot easier. We also hold all of our PR and content in here. So if you have, for instance, you're doing your social media and you have a content calendar, this is a really great, there's some really great options out there. We got sick of having to go through multiple programs. And so we built it into our project management. And this is what I was talking about around tasks having very specific pieces. So for instance, you'll see that anything that is a post, we were able to build custom fields. So it has, we know exactly what we need. We have an IG caption, we can write it in. We have hashtags, we can write it in. It knows that it's a post, and we've built this all pieces in. So, but anyway, I digress. I get really excited about ClickUp and pieces around project management. So as you'll see under our clients here, I made an ACA folder and a small business bootcamp list. So basically the same thing we did with the spreadsheet, right? We said that, okay, this is a project for maybe goal number 1, right? Goal number 1 is its own folder, or maybe this is growth of your business is its own folder or space. Within there is going to be list. Each list is going to be your goal. And then each goal can be broken into milestones and tasks, or we can have one list and build those goals in here as well. So you can see that we're in our ACA. We have our list here. I'm actually going to go deeper and go into that list, and I'm going to start building out the same structure we built out in that spreadsheet. So we could have goal number 1, goal number 2. We can also break this into milestones. So we can say campaign number 1, campaign number 2. I would recommend doing a different list for every single goal. And then within that list for that goal, doing your campaigns, and then within those campaigns, doing the tasks. So let's say campaign number 1 is social media. We can add our description. We already have statuses, and we can build custom statuses. These are our custom statuses that are built out. We can assign them to a team member. So I'm going to assign this to Jessie, which now she's going to get all sorts of random tasks that she's going to be wondering about today, but that's okay. We can add start and due dates here, and we can start adding attachments and activities, but most importantly, we can start adding subtasks. And this is where we're going to say, create content calendar. If you notice, each subtask has ability to assign a different person to it, assign a different date to it. And one thing you'll see is that we can click into any of these subtasks, and it also has space for description and attachments and activity, right? What's really amazing is that this is the same setup as that spreadsheet. This is the same setup. But what it allows us to do is things like automations. It allows us to come in and let the software do some work for us. So if you are a technologically advanced person or someone who learns really quickly, setting up a project management software will be easy for you, or at least won't take too much time. If you're nervous about software, set up a spreadsheet. That will allow you to get started. And as you get more advanced, then you start moving into more software. And I'm going to come back to this in a second, but I want to kind of go through the next piece. So I'm going to go back to my presentation here. I will, in our document that we send out, you'll have a link to ClickUp. Please feel free to use it. Use as many of these softwares as you want to try out or you have time to try out, because they're all different. I've used Asana. It's wonderful. I think it's only great. It's really great for solopreneurs. If you are one person really just needing the organization and the processes, great. Go to Asana, go to Monday. If you like to see things in spreadsheet more form, go to Monday. One of the major things that's amazing about ClickUp as well is that you can see data in different forms. So actually, I am going to go back one more time. Sorry, guys, going back and forth here. I'm going to open, go back to our content calendar for a second because it has content in here. And one of the things that's really amazing is, for instance, our engineers like to see things in spreadsheet form. We have things like lists and spreadsheets where we can see this information. I, for instance, like to see it in a board form. And so that same information I can pull up and see in a board form, right? In Kanban board form. And I can move everything around this way. My social media manager really likes to see stuff in calendar form. So our same information, same data is in calendar form. This is where our spreadsheet can't really hold up, is things like this, as well as features like goal setting, time tracking, right? We talked about time tracking a little bit in the first session. This allows us to time track, right? So this is where you're seeing how this can really be a hub. If you're working with freelancers who need time tracking, you can do that all in here. Okay. I'm going to go back to the presentation now. So from there, now that we kind of decided how we're going to set up our tasks, we kind of built them into a place. It doesn't mean you have to do all of this at once. We can just get the tasks in, and honestly, you can just build in for Q1, right? We are going to go back through and start doing what we call sprint planning, and I'll go through that in a second. But first, we want to think about delegating tasks. So you might be saying, okay, Nicole, we have our goals. We have our KPIs. I have picked to try ClickUp or your spreadsheet method, but now I have a lot of tasks and I'm just not going to get through all of them. That's because as small business owners, as we grow, we need to start learning how to delegate. And there's a myth that I hear a lot. I have to do it all myself. And this is not necessarily true. And you might also be thinking, I can't afford another employee, Nicole. Also, there are options, right? So there's things like part-time, full-time, internal teams, maybe even seasonal. One of these things that is going to be really helpful in deciding which way to go here is not just all the tasks and how much time those tasks are going to take and when they need to be due by, but also us talking through standard operating procedures, which is going to be the next thing we talk through. But there's options around freelance, right? So freelance is when we hire someone with a specific skill set that is going to be on more of a contract basis. We're going to tell them what projects we need. They're going to give us a quote for that work, and they're going to do that work as we need it. They are not full-time with us. They are not even part-time. Most times they don't even work out of our offices. They work from their own equipment, their own time. They can kind of come in and help fill gaps, especially when there's expertise that you do not have. Great time to think about freelance is when a task is going to take you a really long amount of time. And even though you can do it, you know that someone can do it in half or a quarter of that time. That is when it's worth paying a freelancer to go do that task. Agencies would be like coming and hiring someone like Clever Cow. There are lots of marketing agencies out there. I'm sure there's even some on this phone call today, and I'm sure Robert and Faith have a whole list of agencies out there who specialize in very specific things. Agencies can come in from a very high level and either do project-based or retainer-based. They generally are going to kind of fit in a little bit as part of your team and kind of help you on bigger pieces of projects, especially ongoing maintenance pieces. You have fractional. So fractionals are really great. It's something kind of new in the industry that's kind of come in the last few years. Fractional are people who are, for instance, a fractional CMO. You may not be able to afford a CMO. A CMO is a chief marketing officer, but you may be able to bring you need the guidance from someone with that expertise. Those people are going to come in, they're going to act as someone who is a full-time employee in your business. They're going to act as a part of your team, but you're going to pay them for only part of their time. So they may have multiple companies they work with. They're really going to help you with the strategy and the pushing of you forward in the things that we want to grow in. You can have a fractional CFO, Chief Financial Officer, if you need help with the books. You can have a fractional HR person who maybe is helping you with hiring and bringing in people and making sure you're compliant, right? Fractionals are really great in those spaces. And then partnerships, right? Just because we have all these tasks doesn't mean we can't partner. If you have a friend's business, let's say, and you know that friend is really good at community building and you're really good at helping with manufacturing or website design or whatever that case may be, is there a way that you guys can either co-brand and team up, or you can kind of help each other with those pieces? Maybe you're great at HR, they're great at marketing. How can we help those pieces together? So I want to talk about SOPs for a second, standard operating procedures. I know that it's especially as small businesses or solopreneurs, you're thinking this is a lot of extra work I don't need to be doing. But SOPs are really important. Standard operating procedures are really important, and you may not know what you need right now. But as you start going through this project management kind of setup and execution, you're going to see that you do similar things all the time, or you're going to see that you want to make sure that things are done in a specific way. And even if you're a solopreneur, you want to write this down and get this out of your head and build standard operating procedures so that when you are ready to hand this off to a fractional or to a freelancer, you can, right? It's really easy. It's not as hard to kind of hand things off. This is going to allow you to see where the gaps in your resources are, and it's going to allow you to kind of see how to move forward, right? So for instance, maybe you're talking about social media and we're talking about building your social media and posting. Your standard operating procedure might say something like, it might be as easy as just a list, right? Every first week of the month, we are going to have a content meeting. And in that content meeting, we are going to discuss X, Y, Z. Then from there, our social media or our designer is going to design all the posts, and Susie over in, our general manager is going to write all the content for the captions. And then me, Nicole, they're going to put it into QA in our project management software. And I'm going to look it over and make sure that these 5 things are correct. Once it's correct, then Susie is going to go schedule it in all of our social media, accounts. And now we need to have this done by the 15th of every month, right? It's as simple as that. Writing down what is the procedure that you are going to do things in. What's the expectation of the assets or the resources that are doing these pieces? And when you say it's this status, what does that mean? So you're defining what you mean at different places. There's nothing worse than miscommunication, especially from a freelancer or an employee, when they don't know. When you say, this is in progress, these are the things you need to be doing. We need to lay it out for people so that we're not, it's like a relationship, right? In a relationship, your significant other can't read your mind. So sometimes you get mad at them for not saying the things or doing the things you expect them to do. It's the same thing with an employee. How can we expect them to do a task the way we want them to do it, or in an acceptable manner, if we're not laying out what does each of these things mean? So laying out those SOPs will allow you now to go into the next phase of your project management, which is things like automation. And I love automation. This is one of my favorite pieces to talk about because things like automation make small business life so much easier. Let me tell you. So things like automation, types of automation we can talk about is if a task is put into a certain status, then email a certain person that they need to know to look at that task, right? So let's say an employee who is assigned a social media task is looking at the standard operating procedure and knows that Sally needs to get me the content for that social media before it can be QA'd, and I don't have the content. If I put it into a status of blocked, will it email Sally to say, I need the content for this social media? I know it seems small, but when you cut out multiple sources of user error, it means you can go further without having to think about all the small things that happen on a daily basis, right? Things like when I put a new task in for inventory, right? Monthly, you guys maybe have to do inventory at your shop, and you put a new task in for inventory, it automatically builds all the subtasks and assigns it to the right resources, because every time you do inventory monthly, you have the same tasks to do with the same resources who need to do it. These are things that save you time, and even though it might be 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, it's going to save your brain power. It's going to allow you to run more efficiently. And that's what project management and implementation helps you to do. So I'm going to jump back into ClickUp for a second, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So we're in our content calendar here, and you can see there's this automations tab. It allows us to build automations pretty quickly. So when this happens on a task, subtask, or both. So let's say on a task, we say, let's see, we'd say status changes from any status to, let's say, backlogged or needs assets. Then what do we do, right? Look at all of these options that we can do. We can create another task, we can move it to a different list, we can set a new start date, right? We can change the assignee. There's lots of things. We can apply templates and things like that. There's lots of things we can do that can help our day-to-day task building. And this is where things get really interesting. All right. So you might be saying, all right, Nicole, this is a lot of information. How do I just want to stick with a spreadsheet. I just want to stick with standard tasks. That's wonderful. From the next step, once you have your tasks built out, you're starting to go through your project management, it's becoming your hub. You will start building into it amazing things, but you're going to see that it gets really cluttered really fast. And this is where evaluation is going to come into the play. We want to make sure there's different types of evaluations. We're going to do evaluations to see our progress on our goals. We're going to see evaluations to see our progress on our KPIs, all the things we worked on over the last 3 weeks. There's also going to be something called sprint planning. And what sprint planning essentially is a set rule around when you are going to go into your project management software, make sure things are updated, make sure that things need to move or change or get moved into people's workloads. That is going to happen, right? So whether you do that on a bi-weekly or sprint basis, you do that on a monthly basis, you do that on a quarterly basis, you need a rule around looking at the backlog of tasks, seeing which tasks are still open and which ones can be closed, making sure that your employees are going in and updating things, and then making sure workload isn't too big. One of the #1 features of project management softwares that I absolutely love for small businesses is called the workload view. So I'm going to show you this in click up, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But I can see a team workload, and this is not our official one. This is actually one I kind of built in just for you guys to see. But I can see a workload of how many tasks are in people's day, how much time. So let's say these don't have a lot of time, and I know that this one's going to be, 2 hours. I know that this task is going to take 5 hours. Now we see that Jesse here is 3 hours and 30 minutes over capacity for today, right? We can now start saying, well, you know what? This one's not a priority. Let's move that to tomorrow. And now we're more even in our time and in our tracking. The reason this is so important for small businesses is because I've been there. I've been where you guys are, where I think that I could get more done in a day than I can. It is proven that we think we can get more done in one day than we can, but we underestimate how much we can get done in a year. We need to be able to see how much is actually planned into our day. And what this also allows us to do is, let's say a client or someone who is needing something from us calls us and says, can you get me this by Thursday? Right? I can literally look at this and say, oof, I can't, but I can get it to you by Friday. When you set expectations, it allows people 9 times out of 10 to say Friday's fine. But when you say yes to Thursday and then get it to them on Friday, it looks really bad, right? It generally is the end of the world. This is another piece that puts us into a reactive state, pushes off the things we need to do to grow our business, and doesn't allow us to focus on the things that are really important. So allowing us to come in here and see what our workload looks like on a weekly and daily basis will allow us to plan better in the future. And that's the goal here. You're not going to be perfect up front, but learning to how to do this better every single week, every single month will make you more proactive and less reactive. With that being said, I know we're coming to the end here and I want to be respectful of your time. So let's get into a little bit of evaluating for our goals on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. So if you are on a weekly reflection, you should be pulling your weekly KPI numbers. You should be reviewing tasks that have been done and which have roadblocks, and you should be planning and pivoting for next week. You could do this in either a full team view if you have a small team. You can do this in a department view, or you can even do this in down into a campaign view. Pulling that campaign document up, pulling your project management software up and saying, okay, here's where we're supposed to be. Here's where our numbers are now. What tasks have been done? Which have roadblocks? How can we move them around? What can we do better next week? If you wait till the end of the quarter or the end of the year, that's when people get into trouble where they're not going to hit their goals and they can't stop it at that point. Monthly reflections. Now you should be taking track of the bigger KPI and doing what adjustments do you need to make to hit that goal. If you miss a KPI, you miss a goal in 1 month, that's not a huge deal. If you miss a goal in 2 months, okay, now we should start getting worried. If you miss a goal in 3, 4, 5, and you're not pivoting, that means that you're not looking at the right things. So we need to be adjusting to hit goals. And you wouldn't believe how big of an impact one small adjustment can have. So being vigilant about this, and we are small business owners, we're going to push this stuff off because we have not enough time for the daily tasks. Do not do that. Once you make a rule, you say monthly, I want to look at these things with these people, make sure it's very important in the business. Looking at what roadblocks did you hit and how can you avoid those roadblocks next month? A lot of roadblocks you hit are going to be things that are going to happen over and over again. Can you fix that with automation? Can you fix that by hiring a new resource or bringing in a freelancer? Can you fix that by changing who is part of that process or the process altogether? And then can you build a process that's more efficient? Once again, as you're doing these things over and over, you'll start seeing that certain things are really inefficient, right? If you're the one who's constantly building content, but your GM is actually, or your COO is actually really good at that content stuff. Maybe is there a way that you guys can build one big piece of content and your social media team can break it into multiples instead of you doing every little piece? Is there ways to batch? Is there ways to automate? How do we make the stuff more efficient? And then on a quarterly reflection, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it bigger. We're going to go back to that top KPI, those top goals. How are we tracking on them? Do we need to adjust those KPIs? Did we hit them? And we need to make new ones. What adjustments need to be made? What roadblocks, once again, for next quarter? Can we build the process more efficient? And have your priorities change? This one is really important. I know it's a small point on this list, but have your priorities change. As small businesses, we see that our priorities change a lot over time. We need to be able to pinpoint that and say, you know what? Our priorities at the beginning of the year are no longer the same. Let's move out this KPI, bring in a new one, and let's switch these tasks out. We need to be able to be flexible. So with that, I know I threw a lot at you. Feel free to contact me if you have questions. Just one last shameless pitch for us. We have What the Frack, which is a show that teaches us how to do these marketing things. We not only do what we call our case studies, which we take big marketing stories and we break them down into how small businesses can use those same tactics, and then we troubleshoot. So I have a product, I'm having trouble getting new leads in. How do I go about figuring out the next steps? We do these troubleshooting episodes, so check us out, go follow us. And last chance on some of our great products that we have. You will have that link in our last email to you guys. But with that being said, any questions on implementation? I know that was a lot, but any questions that you guys have, I'm here to help.
Yeah, please, if you have any questions, post those up in the Q&A, and we'll, if you have a couple minutes, we can take a couple questions. But great presentation, Nicole. Appreciate all that information and walking us through the different examples. It's always good to see how they work on the actual spreadsheets and platforms. So that was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer. Glad it was helpful. No questions? I couldn't have possibly answered everything. I mean, I know I'm good, Robert, but damn.
It must be the rain. The rain must be messing with everybody today. I think it's throwing us all off a bit. So
if anyone thinks of anything, here is my email address. Feel free to reach out, and I will be emailing you guys on one last follow-up with that workbook. So have fun in the workbook, and I hope that this 3-part series really has helped, but reach out if you have anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for presenting this over the past 3 weeks. Great series. Reminder for everybody, they have been recorded. They will be, the 1 and 2 are in the content library, and this 3rd one will be in there probably by tomorrow morning with the links for the workbooks and the slide decks and so forth. So it's a great resource. You can go back and review it, or get your marketing team to review it, or share it with others. But the last thing, I want to again thank Nicole for being with us. Nicole's a great advocate for the small business ecosystem in Arizona, and she participates in a lot of programs. So we're grateful she could take time out of her busy schedule to be with us for the last 3 weeks. So with that, we will go ahead and wrap up today's session. We hope everybody stays safe in the wet weather, and then you all have a great week, and we hope to see you next week on Tuesday for our next boot camp. Until then, have a great week.